I'm actually an unemployed marketing guy, and I just hate introductions. A basic training on customer service. Okay, satisfaction equals performance minus expectations. Set expectations low, folks. It's really simple. So he's going to be amazing. Oh my God! You know, I'm waiting for somebody to do the introduction that says, "Well, you know, we couldn't get anybody else. Hopefully, he won't suck totally." You know, that's a bar I can clear. Okay, so we're talking about designing your life. You know, that's what we're here to talk about. I wrote the book called Designing a Life. I teach the class called Designing a Life. By the way, is that talking too fast for you? No, good, because I just wanted to know. I'm not going to slow down. I talk this fast all the time. But somebody might be saying, wait a minute, you know, designing your life, what's that about? You're like, hey, dude, wait a minute. I thought this was about designing your region. We're doing urban planning. We're doing economic development here. We're not doing this life stuff. Well, okay. But, I mean, the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, well, I mean, what is an economic partnership? I haven't seen economies partnering recently. I mean, do they get together and have lunch or what? How does that actually work? What's that all really about? Well, I think what that's really about is, you know, sure, if we want to design our region, we would do that because what MBEP does is, you know, advocate and catalyze greater thriving. That's what Kate tells me you guys do, is you advocate for and catalyze, you know, network and create, make greater thriving happen. Okay, what's thriving really about? So what if we were thriving, what would thrive? Well, according to Google's numbers for me anyway last night, what would thrive would be 774,000 people. 774,000 people in these 3 counties, that many lives, that's really all we're talking about. So of course we're designing our life. We're just designing our life 774,000 times as well as we possibly can. So this really is about that. But I'm really giving 2 talks at once the whole time this morning. You know, because the last thing to keep in mind is, you know, put your mask on first. This is the leadership of this region, of this incredibly unique place that we all get to live. And leadership really matters. And we now know that not only the competency and the actions and the efforts of leaders, but even the mood and the mindset of leaders propagates into the people who work with them. It's called mood contagion. It's highly studied, HBR articles, all kinds of stuff. So you people are incredibly contagious. And if you want a thriving region, if the only thing you get from me this morning is, if you want a thriving region, be a thriving person. Have something to give away. You will propagate well if you have something in you that's really worth giving away. So this morning we're talking about you. We're talking about these 450 people, first and foremost. And by the way, all the people you serve and the institutions you work with, because some of these ideas propagate out as well. So I'm doing 2 talks, one to the regional leadership as individuals, you, and then to the other 774,000 people you're taking care of. So, okay, so what is it we do? So this is the Stanford guy. We teach courses. We teach designing your life to a whole bunch of seniors at Stanford. We teach other courses too, designing your Stanford to freshmen and sophomores, how to go to college. We teach designing the professional to PhDs, which frankly is kind of just like the first course, but it has a bigger word in it because you got a PhD. So we teach 15 to going on 20% of all the students in Stanford. Now, these are fairly bright people. I mean, what do these people need to go to sort of the remedial class on figuring out what to do next for? What's going on there? Well, we're user-centered designers in the design program at Stanford, so ask the user. So if you go to some college students at Stanford, you know, and ask them and try to figure out why, you could ask them a question. Ask a question like, hey, what are you going to do next? Now, these are some of literally the brightest kids on the planet, so, you know, I think we expect to hear some interesting answers.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I was going to go to med school, but some grades changed that. I think I'm going to go to law school.
That's my favorite right
I
there.
have no idea.
Okay, so now did I wait around all day long for the 13 clueless kids to show up so we could grab them on video, make them look bad, and sell the course? No, that takes about 5 minutes to get. It's not hard at all. By the way, you want to know where we got that video? At a career fair. Yeah. You notice they're wearing the clean clothes, got the little name tag on, you know, my name is Sue, majored in anthropology, help, you know, that kind of thing. Why is this going on? Well, let's get really insightful. Being really good at school has nothing to do with being really good at life. Being really smart has nothing to do with being really clear. So we got a problem here. And Bill and Burnett, my partner in crime, and I said, okay, so we got a job to do here. So we formed the Life Design Lab at Stanford with the mission of applying the innovation principles of design thinking to the wicked problem of designing your life at and after university. That's what we do. That's the technically correct, pedagogically crafted elevator pitch about my mission in life. What's that really mean, Dave? What that really means is we're the guys teaching the class to help you figure out what you want to be when you grow up. Now, how many of you I'd sort of like to get that done. I really am ready to get done growing up. I can't wait to get done growing up. Yeah, because that's really cool, because then you get to be this really cool thing called dead. You're dead when you're done with that. So even though this is recognizable, sorry to pick on you, but this is a terrible framing. First reframe of the morning is, we want to be the guys teaching the course to help you keep figuring out what you want to become next, because, of course, we believe in this thing called growth. Now, we say it this way, and then everybody goes, ooh, can I take the class? Can I take the class? And up until recently, if you weren't one of our 17,000 kids, the answer, there's 7 billion people, the answer was no. So Bill said, we have to write a book. So that's why we wrote the book. We got tired of not saying yes to these people, and to my great surprise, that became this New York Times bestseller, and I'm flying around the world talking about this stuff all the time, and Kate, bugs me and says, you got to come talk to these people. And I really am astonished. This hasn't stopped for 2 years, and why is that going on? Why am I here? Why is this the first thing to talk about? Well, because we all share this experience that people are stuck. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And they're stuck because of dysfunctional beliefs, ideas that are either just flat out untrue or are certainly not generative. This is how psychology describes these things. Give you a couple of examples. That's sort of the last thing I'll say about college students. So a classic dysfunctional belief in college is, hey, what are you majoring in? Classic question, right? I'm majoring in anthropology with a minor in creative writing. You all know the next question. What are you going to do with that? Exactly, right? Here's why this is a dysfunctional belief. According to the research, 8 out of 10 college graduates are working outside their field of baccalaureate study within 5 to 10 years of graduation. Quickly, how many of you are currently working at what you studied when you were 19? Okay, that's actually an unusually high group, almost 4%. People change their mind. By the way, do the math, people. Those if you went to college, but how many undergraduate majors does the average college offer? Somewhere between 35 and 75. 68 at Stanford. There are 7.2 billion people in the world. Are there more than 68 things people do? There's 4 times that in this room. It's a dumb question. Be careful with your questions. Questions have belief systems. And before you authorize a question to be a life-organizing question, be sure you believe its belief system. This question believes that what you study will determine what you'll do. It's just not true. Move on. Okay, bad idea, dysfunctional belief. Number 2. The single most popular organizing question in the current meta-narrative of our modern culture. What is your passion? Or properly pronounced, what's your passion? What's your passion? Are you passionate? Are you passionate? Are you passionate about Monterey Bay? That's a yes. I'll give you another chance. So are you passionate about the Monterey Bay? Yes. Good, okay, that's fine. Just a little plug for Kate there, but the point being, for some reason, like 8 out of 10s, the research really does say 8 out of 10 people answer the what's your passion question with either, gosh, I don't know, I'm hoping to find one, or I got a bunch. Which one you want to hear about first? Being honest, how many of you are in one of those 2 boats? I'm still looking, or I've got a set. That's an incredibly normal human condition 8 out of 10 people actually reside in. This question believes, number 1, everybody has a passion. Number 2, you will find it young in life. Number 3, the world will let you make a living at doing it. All 3 of those are false. Most people earn a passion by doing something, not start with a passion and then go find a place to do it. Passion's more often the outcome than the input. It's a dysfunctional question. My personal favorite, are you being the best you? Are you being the best you? This thing you're doing, the stuff you're doing right now, are you sure this is it? It wasn't that, was that it? Maybe I should be in LA. No, that's got to be wrong. Because you're not settling, are you? We're organizational leaders here. We're not settling. Here's the problem with this best thing. Best has a very specific denotative meaning. It means something. It means against a series of alternatives, there is a set of objective criteria that can be fairly and rationally applied to all the alternatives equally, And you can rank and score them accordingly, so you can actually make a comparison fairly and know which one is better than the others and which one's better than everyone else, which means it's the best. Option A is 72, option B is 69, option C is 81. Clearly, C is the best one. But here's the problem. We're talking about lives here, if not regions. And I'm 65. Once again, I'm probably pushing being one of the older people in the room. And my lovely wife, Claudia, who's how I got here, and I are in our 60s, have 5 adult children and 7 grandchildren. By the way, anybody got more than 7 grandkids? Anybody more than 7 grandkids? 1. How many you got? I got 7. You got 7. That's a tie. I still win. Okay. You have 13 great-grandkids. Okay. I'm done there. I mostly hang out in rooms where I win that. But nonetheless, so the thing about best is, and at this point in my life, I'm on my 6th career, and I've got 4 or 5 different ways I can go right now. You tell me what's better. What's better, my educational reformer self? I spend a lot of time now in front of rooms full of people like you, but all with PhDs doing pedagogical research, talking about how colleges ought to be reframed. So my educational reformer self, my grandfather self, because I'm here talking, I never see my 7 grandkids, so I'm talking to people like you, or my CEO coach self. I still run incubators on the side. So what's better, my CEO coach, my grandfather, or my educational reformer? You can't get there from here. It's not even apples versus oranges. It's like apples, frogs, and steel. Quickly, what's better, frogs or steel? Who wants to live without one or the other? That's the problem. It's a dumb question, and you got to watch out for it. There's all kinds of dysfunctional beliefs. We want to reframe those things to get some more freedom, to get designing a little more innovatively going forward. So that's a really bad idea. The reframe is, look, there is no best you. There are lots of good yous. So we need to move on. We need to think differently. We need to think actually like designers. So it's time to talk about this design thinking thing, the platform upon which all the work I'm currently doing stands. How many of you ever heard of design thinking? Okay, a bunch of us. Okay. And maybe mostly on that side of the room for some reason. It's kind of a left side deal, So the best way to understand design thinking is what it's not. There are lots of ways to think. Here are just a couple examples. There's engineering thinking. Engineering is terrific. I have a couple of engineering degrees. And engineers, we solve our way forward. We work on what are technically known as tame problems. Tame problems are ones where we know what the criteria are, the problem doesn't move around under too much, and it can be solved over and over again the same way with reliability. The bridge does not wake up on Thursday and go, I'm over it. I'm just over this thing. I'm stressed out by the stress bearing. I think next week I'm going to fall down because I'm done. Now, if bridges did that, civil engineering would be a much more exciting field. But they don't, thankfully, so engineering thinking really, really works. Now, there's business thinking, a bunch of business people in the room, and of course, in business, you're never done and you're never right. You're never right. You're hopefully a little better. Your customer never loves you enough, your competitive barriers are never strong enough, your profitability is never well enough understood, and so on. Your market share is never strong enough. But you can get better. You get better with actual figures of merit, depending on how you evaluate that. You can go to a business school and get all quantitative about it. But it's a way of thinking optimizationally. Then there's bureaucratic thinking. And I mean that with no valence. I don't mean that as a cheap shot, which is process your way forward. Why do bureaus, why do departments, largely in public sectors, work the way they work? Well, because with leadership changing through on a rapid basis and all different kinds of things that have to be viewed from the outside in, you have to define what you're doing in a very process-oriented way. Process is king. What's the number of the square upon which you are standing, and what direction does the arrow point? That's the question we ask in a bureau. And that really works for some stuff. So it gets bogged down. All these can bog down. But then there are a whole class of problems that none of these works on very well, called wicked problems. Originally conceived by Horst and Riddle in 1973 from the University of California, Berkeley, the 10 attributes of a wicked problem. That was too complex. In the early 2000s, Conklin knocked that down to the 6 attributes of a wicked problem, which I won't teach the whole course on right now. But suffice it to say, the wicked problems are problems that constantly move. You don't know the success criteria until you figured out the solution. Once you figured out the solution, you can never reuse it again and plant it somewhere else because it's not reusable. And there's no immediate alternative backup to it if you fail. If the bridge is down, we can take the ferry. There's no backup plan. Wicked problems are intrinsically human problems, messy problems. Problems that have to do with inventing this place we all want to go but nobody's been before, called the future. Because you can't analyze the future, you can't solve the future, but you can build the future. You build your way forward in design thinking. We do not analyze to think, we do not scrutinize to think, we do not process to think, we build to think, we draw to think, we do to think. Specifically, design thinking is defined as a process and a set of mindsets. The process is this thing we call the caterpillar, these 5 steps. First, empathy, you deeply understand what's going on. You have to problem find before you problem solve. Half the time stuff doesn't work because you're working on the wrong thing. After you figure out what it is you're really working, now you can define your point of view, your attitude, your problem, your orientation, which allows you to start having ideas that might be useful. We're well known for having lots and lots of ideas. Who's ever done brainstorming? You're welcome. Okay, thank you. We sort of thought that up 63 years ago. And the point of ideation is not to make a decision, but to come up with prototypes. The absolute cardiopulmonary system of design thinking is prototype iteration. I'll talk a little more about that before we're done. And then finally you test stuff before you visit it on the unsuspecting victim. Now, there's step 0 to design, which is always true even in product design. A million years ago, when I was the world's first mouse product manager at Apple, had 120 mouse prototypes under my desk. That's kind of easy to imagine. But in life, what's going on there, you have to make sure that you do step 0, which is accept. You have to start where you actually are. You can't solve a problem you're not willing to have. Nobody in this room, I'm sure, but you may know some people who complain about a situation over and over again, and over time you've come to realize they're not really getting anywhere in this problem. In fact, their problem isn't their problem. It's their problem with their problem. You got a problem with your problem? That's a problem. Because you can't solve that problem. Acceptance is where it's at. Reality is where all the cool solutions finally arrive. Okay, now there's the mindset. How do designers think about the world? Well, they think about the world in a variety of ways. They kind of walk around with these points of view, the center post being curiosity. Ooh, how interesting. Let me go find that out. What we call the pursuit of latent wonderfulness. Curiosity believes there's something worthwhile over there. We start with that assumption, which pulls us forward. That's going to make us radical collaborators, not necessarily having radical ideas, but that means radically inclusive, hearing from every single voice. If you haven't heard from everybody, you haven't heard. We call them the experts. We walk out with no point of view whatsoever until we can form one and define that perspective. If you do that, you're going to end up changing your mind about something. You're going to do a reframe. That reframe also makes sure that as you're going along in the design process, because eventually something's got to happen, you're very mindful of your process, mostly mindful of when I'm flaring out and having ideas and focusing in and making judgments. They're not the same at all. And importantly, bias to action. When in doubt, do stuff. Don't think about it so much, go out and do something. Now, by the way, let me just start by saying, do the second reframe of the morning. MBEP is a reframe. Keith and I discussed this. MBEP actually is a reframe. See, the technical definition of in networking theory, by the way, this is not just a network. A network is merely connectivity. A partnership is not merely connectivity. A partnership is relationships. If you think of yourself as, my name's Anna and I work for, Acme Housing, whatever, and I'm sitting here and I went to the MBEP thing, then you're a network member. If you think of yourself as, I'm one of a large group of deeply dedicated members of a community of regional leaders who are transforming the Bay together, staking out our positions of stewardship across a diverse ecosystem. If that's the way you think about who you are, that's a reframe. By the way, that's who you are. So, it's a 20-hour course. It's thousands of pages of stuff. It's terabytes of PowerPoint. It's more than you want to deal with. So I'm going to give you 4 quick ideas and still try to get out of here with some time for some Q&A. Okay, idea number 1. What is it people are really after anyway? Well, our buddy Dan Pink wrote a book called Drive some years back. It's still his most popular book. He's a lovely guy. And he did some stuff on how people are motivated. We're going to jump in now and hear about a minute's worth of a video out of 10 where he's talking about compensation, employee compensation, and motivation. So we're going to sort of jump in the middle of a sentence, and they're talking about a piece of research looking at when you give people bonuses, extra money, what happens to their performance, and it's kind of unusual.
So let's take the experiment. We're going to go to Madurai, India. rural India, where $50, $60, whatever the number was, is actually a significant sum of money. So they replicated the experiment in India roughly as follows. Small rewards, the equivalent of 2 weeks' salary. Small performance, low performance, 2 weeks' salary. Medium performance, about a month's salary. High performance, about 2 months' salary. Okay, so those are real good incentives. Okay, so you're going to get a different result here. Well, what happened, though, was that the people offered the medium reward did no better than the people offered the small reward. But this time around, the people offered the top reward. They did worst of all. Higher incentives led to worse performance. What's interesting about this is that it actually isn't all that anomalous. This has been replicated over and over and over again by psychologists, by some extent by sociologists, and by economists, over and over and over again. For simple, straightforward tasks, those kinds of incentives, if you do this, then you get that, they're great. For tasks that are algorithmic, set of rules where you have to just follow along and get a right answer, if-then rewards, carrots and sticks, outstanding. But when the task gets more complicated, when it requires some conceptual, creative thinking, those kinds of motivators demonstrably don't work. In fact, money is a motivator at work, but in a slightly strange way. If you don't pay people enough, they won't be motivated. What's curious about, there's another paradox here, which is that the best use of money as a motivator is to pay people enough to take the issue of money off the table. Pay people enough so that they're not thinking about money and they're thinking about the work. Now, once you do that, it turns out there are 3 factors that the science shows lead to better performance, not to mention personal satisfaction. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. How many of you would be in favor of, if you offered me a little more autonomy, mastery, and purpose, I'm okay with that? Who would say, I'm okay with that? Now, how many of you would say, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, how many of you think, my boss is probably lying awake most nights thinking about how much mastery, autonomy, and purpose I am being empowered with? Our organizational culture is designed around optimizing for mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Most people answer that question no. I ask my students this all the time. How many of you think the place you're about to go when you're no longer a student is going to care about this on your behalf? And almost nobody thinks that's true. Now, the good news is that's actually not the case. This actually is a rising tide. Leading organizations are thinking this way. But what it boils down to is this reminds us we're talking about human beings here. It's not just about the money. It's about meaning making. It's about significance. It's about, is this the life I want to live? This has to do with your own personal satisfaction. This has to do with employee leadership and talent management in organizations and engagement. It has to do with student culture for educators. It has to do with people who are working with the homeless. We're working with people, this design your life stuff. Isn't it really just for elite students, Dave? That's a very fair question. The answer is no. No, if you're elite, and everybody in this room is, you have more choices. You have more Lego pieces in the box and you can build cooler toys. But that's not the issue. The issue is, does design thinking, does design tools as a set enable a person in any situation to get to an A prime from A, maybe not all the way to B, but from A to A1 or A2 that's a little bit better? We got people in the Philippines working with women just rescued out of sex slavery, being retrained to re-enter the workforce, working with our tools, cherry-picked carefully for that constituency. But we're talking about human beings here, and people really care about their lives. The reason my course is popular is really simple. You get 2 units of engineering credit to think about yourself. It's not a hard pitch, It's really not a hard pitch. Now, if we connect the dots, and the 3 dots are who you are, what you believe, and what you're doing. If you can help people connect the dots, who am I, what do I believe, and what am I doing, and how do they interrelate, then you start living what we call the coherent life. And if you live the coherent life, your chance of experiencing meaning-making goes way up. And that's what we're thinking about, so we do an exercise called the compass we haven't got time to do. But idea number 1 is connect those dots. It's going to help no matter where you are. Help others connect the dots and connect your own. Idea number 2, have lots of different ideas about your life. When you do ideation in life design, let's go forward. We want to ideate the future, right? Well, we can't ideate the future because, as we've already learned, there isn't just one best you. Which brings up the question, how many lives are you? I haven't got time to actually do it. There's a rhetorical question there. If there really was a multiverse, and you could be as many parallel versions of you in the cosmos as you wanted to be, how many of you would you like? 17, 24? You can imagine there's more aliveness in each of us than one lifetime will possibly permit us to live. There's more than one of you in there. Ergo, when we do what we call Odyssey planning in the ideation process, we do Odyssey plans with at least 3 versions of you. We restrict you to merely 3. In fact, if we actually did the exercise now, which we haven't got time, on a single piece of paper, in 12 minutes time, you come up with 3 radically different versions of the next 5 years of your life. Thousands of people have done it. You could do it too. Now, are there really 3 versions of me? Sometimes people they say, that sounds like a good idea, but I can't think 3 up. And we have a little tool to help you with that if you need it. First of all, thing 1 you'd probably do is the current version of your life. Let's say your name is Alan. You're a young MBA from Chicago. That's not his name. That's not him. But there was a guy. And he said the stuff I'm about to say. And I'm going to go work for a medical consulting firm. I'm very excited. I know what I'm doing. Don't bother me, Dave. I don't need 2 more ideas. I go, Alan, sure you do. What if thing number 1 died? What if nobody did consulting anymore? All the CEOs got together and said, you know, we're kind of tired of paying to hear stuff we already knew, followed by no implementation. I consulted 20 years. I can throw my team under the bus. There's no more consulting, Alan. He goes, what do you mean? I go, Alan, you're an MBA. You're unemployed. It's embarrassing. What will you do? And he goes, well, gosh, I had to do something else. I kind of like strategy. I think media is cool. I don't know much about it. How about becoming a strategy guy in a big media company? I go, great, Alan. Third thing is the wild card. What would you do if money were no object and nobody would laugh? He said, oh. If you promise nobody will laugh, I'd be a boutique wine distributor. And I said, Alan, here we are 20 seconds later. You had 3 ideas. You just didn't know you knew. Trust me, all of you have way more than 3 ideas about your future. You may not have given yourself a chance to ask the question. Now, why do we ask people to do that wild thing? What's the wild thing about? The wild thing is not, designers get a bad rap for like just preferring why, they like to wear a lot of black, waste a lot of Post-it notes, and like bad ideas. That's not really true. The reason we push the wild idea is not because wild is better, but because we understand how your brain works. See, here's your brain on ideas. Let's say I have a nice black and white conventional idea. And then that little voice in my head, we all have that little voice, the internal observer, pops up and says, good job, Dave. Nice idea. I think that's appropriate. Continue. Proceed with caution. Thank you very much. Well done, young man. Then I have one of those wild, multicolored, tie-dyed Santa Cruz kind of ideas, and that voice jumps up and goes, what are you talking about? You're going to embarrass us in public. That's a really bad idea. Stop it, stop it, stop it. And if we took an fMRI of my brain at that point, you see the wall go up. Literally a whole chunk of your brain where most of the ideation actually occurs gets cool. And with that died a whole bunch of hidden ideas you don't know. And it might include the really cool idea. So the reason we push wild is in order to still the internal critic. If you can learn how to defer criticism by pushing yourself beyond reasonability, your access to all the ideas goes up. We just want you to have access to your whole brain. Okay. Now, idea number 3, we got 2 to go. Prototyping. I already said this is the heartbeat of design, so it's important to understand it. So prototyping is in order to really come up and do the innovation. The way it works is we prototype for a very specific reason, to ask interesting questions. That's the only reason we prototype. Late stage engineering prototyping, the word prototype gets used lots of valid ways. A lot of prototypes are like, just before we sell this, jet engine from Rolls-Royce to, Finnair, we better make sure it doesn't kill people. So let's put this thing in a big cinder block box and run it 2x normal speed and throw a goose through it and see what happens. That's actually an FAA test. And if it blows up, then the prototype failed. If you can if you can comment on your prototype that it failed, that means you thought it was going to work. You already thought you had the right answer. You thought you knew what you were doing. So if you're prototyping when you think you know what you're doing, you're not doing a design prototype. A design prototype is when you absolutely know beyond a shadow of a doubt you have no idea what you're doing. And the only way you could learn something is to try it. So we're going to go out and we're going to ask an interesting question. Gee, what would happen if? And in the process, I'm going to expose my assumptions. I'm going to involve other people because you never do these alone. And what I'm really trying to do is sneak up on the future. The future is already here. It's just unequally distributed. You want to go find the place where the future is starting to happen by having this small experience called a prototype. And if we do this well, this enables us to achieve the thing you may have heard of that we talk about all the time, which is really important. It's called failure immunity. That's David Kelly, the founder of IDEO, the current head of the design program at Stanford. Well known for this kind of stuff. Fail often or fail forward or fail fast to succeed sooner. Who's heard stuff like that? How many of you buy it? Maybe, yeah. So, okay, here's the deal. the reason this can work and is true is only if your prototype has the purpose of learning something. The only way a design prototype could fail is if you paid no attention whatsoever and didn't learn anything. I mean, why'd you even come? So if you just show up, you can't fail. And if you start getting good at doing these things fast, because a good prototype is easy, fast, and cheap. All it has to do is teach you something and move on. You prototype a lot, ergo iteration, you're going to get forward faster. That's the whole idea. Now, we're talking about life design here, not computer mice or something like that, like this little box in my hand. How do you prototype a life? Two simple ways. You have a conversation or have an experience. You go talk to people and get their story. It's not a transactional conversation to get the job. It's just like, tell me the story. Or, hey, let me go play, let me go watch. This is a place where people can actually collaborate with one another. In fact, my breakout this afternoon will be specifically on how to collaborate. And actually going to create some collaboration in real time. That's how this thing works. Now, where do I prototype? How do we know where to start prototyping? Well, if I'm Alan, and I'm thinking about these three versions of my life, the first question is not what's most strategic, what's most expensive, what's most important, what do you know the least about? No, it's what are you curious about, Alan? Because that's where the human energy lies. This is hard stuff to do. We want to give ourselves a chance to enjoy it and have it keep going. So, hey, Alan, what are you curious about? He looks at the media thing and he goes, well, actually, I really think the technology is cool. I know nothing about it. I wonder if I could get some people to talk to me. I go, Alan, apparently you've never met a gearhead before. Just ask one question and sit back. You'll have a great time. They love to talk about that stuff. How about the wine thing? What do you think about that? And he started looking into it, a real person, and he said, gosh, I found out, Dave, if you buy the expensive tour at the winery, you actually get to go out into the field. And I did that, and I touched a live grape. It was fuzzy. I had no idea there are fuzzy grapes. It was so cool. And I met some workers in the field. It was really a different experience. It was just a little more 3D than a conversation. You can do this stuff. You can get out there and touch fuzzy grapes. Now, where's this leading to? This is leading to the last one, which I think probably comes up for some people in this room. How do you know don't get stuck on anchor problems? Two kinds of problems we talk about that you get stuck on all the time, gravity problems and anchor problems. I picked anchor problems this morning. An anchor problem is not really a problem. It's a situation where you have framed your problem by anchoring yourself to a perceived solution that's not really working. And so by being stuck on your preferred solution, you can't get anywhere in your problem. What's it sound like? It sounds like this. I would love to go sailing, and I want to go sailing all the time, but I can't afford a boat. How do I afford a boat? I have to buy a boat. I want to be a grandmother, but my daughter doesn't want to have kids. How do I get her to start a family? Sure, nobody here has thought of that. Or lastly, the only way to really make change in local policy is to do it yourself. How do I get elected to the city council, especially after 4 losing campaigns in a row? You see what I'm doing here? The solution is, my problem is my failed solution. And so the opportunity is to do a reframe. Reframe means think about it another way. So the way you do that is, hey, I love to go sailing. Buying a boat is just an anchor solution. I could join a sailing club. I could do a timeshare. I could just show up on the dock and offer to crew for other people. Lots of ways to get on a boat without having a title in your hand. I want to play with babies. That's what I want to do, so I can volunteer at the community center, at my local church, or what's this really about? No, I want to spend more time with my daughter. She's not having enough sex, she's just reading all the time. So, so I'll just start reading what she reads. Let's read it. I can read with my daughter, because that's what it's really about. I'm really getting at what's the real problem, not my preferred solution. Or, hey, I want to engage with the council's work, not run campaigns. I could actually try for a non-elected job. Maybe I can just actually get a job rather than get elected. I don't need only like one person to like me, the manager. Or I could find the easiest council person to work with and help him or her. I think about it differently. When you're doing an anchor reframe, what you do is you zoom out. You get away from your preferred solution that you're stuck on and reframe what the real possibilities might be. What you have to do is you have to let go that solution. It's a tough call to make. It's a time to, when is the message from the universe, hang tough, Sisyphus, and keep going, or like, dude, maybe this is a feedback loop and we should try it another way. So sometimes you want to give yourself a little bit of freedom. It's all about having some more freedom. How many of you would say, not you, of course, but somebody who's been stuck for some time, and part of being stuck is they're a little too close to their preferred outcome. Does this happen in the public sector? Does this happen in regional development at all? If I can't have that address, gee, we need more affordable housing. How do I convince these developers to start building affordable housing? How do I change their mind? Good luck with that. And you're simply Simon, you kind of go, oh, I know. What other ways could I get more affordable housing developed? Oh, I'm unemployed. I could start a company and actually be the kind of developer the world needs. That's a whole different idea. So, okay, we're just about done here. Way just about done. So let's wrap this thing up. What's the big idea? The big idea, probably number one big idea in the first reframe is this three thing. I'm over at a rarely large Silicon Valley company whose name I can't tell you, but you use them for search a lot. And I'm talking to a senior HR woman named, we'll call her Jane, and we're doing a pilot of this workshop we do, and Jane asked me a question. She goes, hey, Dave, we put a ton of money and time into our PDP, our professional development plan, how we develop the lives of all of our workers, and frankly, even though it's world-class, I still think it's not all that great. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you think you might understand the problem? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, Jane, yes, I do. I understand your problem. I know what's wrong. And she goes, oh, well, you tell me. And I said, no, I won't. I won't tell you, I'll show you. Just watch today. A couple hours go by, we're doing that 3 versions of your life thing, and I shout across the room and go, hey, Jane. She goes, what? She goes, this is it. It's 3, it's not 1. It's 3, not 1. The point being that people are multiplexed, complex realities. There isn't a right answer to almost any of the important questions. And yet we ask questions with exclusive singularity formats all the time. Have you figured it out yet? Do you know what you're going to do? Are you sure this is it? This is the best one, isn't it? We pre-format the presupposition that there's a right best answer to a whole bunch of questions to which there are simply many good answers, and please don't let the misperception of a perfect that doesn't even exist get in the way of the good. That's the big idea. We get stuck a lot behind that stuff. So we gave you a couple of ideas, connect the dots for more meaning making, think about more than one version of your life or your regional plan or your talent management system, whatever it might be, prototype your life and your region and everything you're doing that's wicked, and don't get stuck on your anchor problems. Now, why should we trust this guy? Well, you're not the first ones. We've been doing this now with literally hundreds of thousands of people. We're in 360,000 copies of the book in 23 languages in 2 years. I mean, this really took us by storm. Everybody seems to think their life matters to them. Who knew? And then secondly, we actually did research. We have the people with the white coats and the clipboards and the whistles came over and checked us all out. They evaluated the technical efficacy of the rigor of our intervention, which sounded like going to a proctologist to me, but the outcome was it works, because again, we're at Stanford, we're a research university, and actually we believe in this thing called facts. We don't really do the alternative fact thing. We think facts are kind of interesting. And it's actually finally, after 57 years, the first time we turned the lights of design thinking as a tool, not on a thing, but on ourselves. We said, hey, we could actually design ourselves. What a concept. And it really works because it's human-centered design. That's the technical term. Design thinking is really the nickname. The real technical term is human-centered design. Design in ways that act like human beings for people who are human beings. That will really work. So as leaders, as you're trying to imagine how you can be more and better and growing, as everyone here already knows they want to be, and certainly Kate will remind you should, that we want to be, of course, more mindful and cloud-based and kind of kale-loving, certainly, innovative, region-leading, and just downright dazzling. Could we maybe at least try to be, if nothing else, a little more human? Because that's kind of what it's all about. And even though I'm about 5 minutes behind, I think I probably can take a couple of questions. So thank you for your time. So probably just 2 or 3, because I've only got about 2 or 3 minutes. But any questions at all about how this works or what's going on, or this part sounded like BS to me? Yeah, what do you got? Just shout it out, or I'll repeat it.
4 years ago, when I was first elected to the Los Angeles City Council, I had to develop a new skill, and that skill was having to deal with colleagues who have big egos.
Okay.
And so, where do egos fall in?
Where do egos fall in the design process? Usually to the side over time. No, the ego is just part of the empathetic definition of the situation. So if you've got a person who is powerful and meaningful and influential, you have exactly 2 choices, with or around. Pick one. If it's around, work around these people, then do it artfully and make sure you're not setting it up to be harder than it has to be. If you're working with them, find out what's important to them and make it work for them. If you can find the way to frame what you care about in their terms, it gets a lot easier. This is my 12th year at Stanford. We started this thing that didn't exist at all. I have never started or initiated one thing. Every single thing we've done at the Stanford Design Lab, which now has trained 54 universities, serving 1 million students, I mean, it's a big deal. I only did it because they asked me to. Now, getting people to ask me questions I want to answer, that's the skill you want to develop. Next question. There are a couple more hands? One more? Stop. That's not a question. That's an instruction. Okay. I'll violate this. And one more. Okay, so I will be doing a breakout this afternoon. I didn't talk about collaboration hardly at all because we're going to do it this afternoon between 2:30 and 4. Thanks for your time. God bless you guys, and I think you get to hear from Matt next.